and welcome to CEO Insights. I'm Marilyn de Guzman with Investing News Network. We are at PDAC here in Toronto, and I'm here with Barry Murphy, Chief Operating Officer for Aclara Resources, a company with ambitious goals to shape the future of sustainable mining. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you.
Thank you for inviting us.
So first, let's start with an overview of your company and bring us up to date on some of your priority projects.
Sure. We're a relatively new company. We established ourselves in December 2021, spun out of a larger mining company called Hochschild. And we have a rare earths asset in south central Chile, which we're in the process of moving forward to production in 2026, quarter 1 2026. And we believe that this rare earths product that we will be producing will be filling a critical need in the market as the electric revolution takes a foothold. And we believe we'll be well positioned to be able to supply product into that market.
Great. So your asset in Chile contains ionic clay deposit. Tell us why this is significant.
Yeah, so the ionic rare earths, or the ionic clays that contain these rare earths are different to the typical rare earths that are extracted from hard rock type deposits. So globally, most of the rare earths are produced through the hard rock kind of conventional mining process, and most of it is coming out of China, as most people know at this stage. There are a few ionic clay resources that have been identified in the world today. In fact, there are 3 of them, and we own one of them. There's a second one in Brazil and a third in Uganda. And those are the only 3 that have been identified as economically viable to produce at this stage. What makes the ionic rare earth clays more interesting is that the development process for extracting the rare earths is a lot simpler than the traditional mining approach with the hard rock rare earths, in that we don't have any blasting, we don't need to crush or grind, so our carbon footprint is very low. The extraction process is very simple. We use a fertilizer essentially to extract the rare earths. It's ammonium sulfate. We wash the clays with this ammonium sulfate, which extracts the rare earths through an ion exchange process. And then we take those barren clays and we wash them with clean, recycled water, and we discharge them back into the area that we took them from as a stable, dry clay, essentially a low moisture clay. And so there's no tailings facility that's required in this kind of mining. And a key difference between what we're doing and what the traditional rare earth companies need to do is the management of radioactive elements. So we don't produce any radioactive discharge, or there's no radioactive stream in anything that we do. So that sets us apart from the other types of mining operations producing rare earths.
Yeah, so I understand there's, the location, geographical location of this deposit is significant geopolitically speaking as well, because most of the ionic clay deposits are in jurisdictions that are not ideal, or so to speak. Could you expound on that?
Sure, yeah. So you're right in that most of the rare earths that are produced come out of China, and they do produce rare earths through an ionic clay as well. That there's an ionic clay as a resource, but I guess the compliance to environmental standards in that part of the world wouldn't necessarily meet with the kind of standards that we would want to meet in terms of our production. So that is a key element of what we're trying to achieve. We are trying to develop this mine in a very responsible fashion. And that goes through the entire design process. For example, the water that we use. We use a very small volume of water. It's in the region of 6 liters per second, which is orders of magnitude less than what a typical mining operation would require. And of that fresh water that we bring into the process, we recycle 95% of it. So there's an enormous recycle process within our process plant. And in addition, the reagent that we use, this ammonium sulfate, is also recycled within our plant. So we are very efficient in terms of the consumption of energy and water and reagents. The water that we will be using, this fresh water, is in fact it's industrial water that is currently being discharged into the sea in close to the mine site. So we're buying that water and we're introducing that into our process, which was a waste stream being discharged into the sea. And so a lot of what we do is essentially focused on how do we minimize the environmental impact of what we're trying to achieve.
Right. And I want to get into more details about, how you're really trying to reshape the future of mining operations. But I wonder, could you talk about Chile as a mining jurisdiction?
Sure. So Chile has a very long and rich history of mining. So from a purely mining perspective, it's a very attractive region to be operating. The processes associated with environmental permitting are well understood, and they are predictable and they are clear. And then in addition, there's a wealth of human capital there and know-how within Chile, which certainly will benefit us as we move through our feasibility study and eventually into operations. We are located in the south central part of Chile, which is not historically a mining area, and so we are bringing to that area jobs. There will be the wealth generation within that area, which is attractive to that region, and we will be upskilling many of the resources, the human capital in that region that generally haven't been exposed to the kind of benefits that some of the other regions of Chile have had through the historical mining in those regions. Geopolitically, as everybody knows, last year was a challenging year, I think, for Chile from a political perspective, but it has stabilized enormously, and we see that it's now reverting to historically how Chile was, which was really considered to be a safe haven in South America for mining.
So you've set out, you have this ionic clay asset, but you've also made it a point that, sort of from the get-go, you're going to proceed with more environmentally friendly processes in your production. Why was that important for the company?
Well, the way we're approaching this is that we don't want to try and solve one problem by creating another problem. So we want to be part of the electric revolution, and the whole ethos of the electric revolution is to safeguard the planet. And so if we want to be part of that, we need to be true to that ethos as well. And that really goes to the core of everything we do in the business, and that wherever we have an opportunity to reduce our environmental impact, we do. So, for example, I mentioned the water, the industrial water that we're using. Now, we have the license to extract the water we need from a nearby stream that discharges into the sea as well, but it's clean water. And we've chosen to not take that water, but rather incur the expense of buying industrial water and using that in our process, for example. In addition, the extraction of the rare earths from these clays have a recovery which is relatively low when compared to other types of mineral extraction in the gold and copper industry, for example. And we could, for example, extract a greater amount of rare earths from these clays if we chose to grind or mill the clays. But in doing that, we would liberate some of the radioactive elements like thorium and uranium. It would be hugely advantageous for us from a commercial perspective to be able to extract those rare earths. But once again, we've chosen not to, because we don't want to create a radioactive stream that comes out of our process plant that obviously impacts the environment. So we do try to think about how to minimize our impact as much as we can, and this has been recognized. In fact, last year we were awarded through Business Intelligence the Sustainability Award for our project, the Penco project in Chile, which is in recognition of the efforts that we're making to limit our carbon footprint in everything that we do.
What are you seeing in terms of, so you're these sort of marrying technology into the whole process? And I understand this is a proprietary process that you've developed with a couple universities. Can you talk a bit about that?
Sure, yes. Yeah. So we've developed a simple flow sheet. It's not a complicated flow sheet, but it's unique. And as it's unique, we've patented it. And we've developed this flow sheet with enormous help from some of the institutions, both in Chile as well as here in Canada. So the University of Toronto, for example, has been working with us for a number of years to design this flow sheet and optimize it. But similarly, the universities in Chile, the University of Concepcion and the University of Chile itself, have been instrumental in helping us develop this flow sheet. So it is, to say, it's a simple flow sheet, but we think it's a robust flow sheet. We're in the process now of assembling a pilot plant in Concepcion in Chile, which will be operational in Q2 of this year. And that pilot plant will then demonstrate at a pilot scale the effectiveness of this flow sheet that we've designed. And it will allow us to fine-tune any element of the flow sheet that we weren't able to do at a lab scale or a desktop scale. But importantly, it'll also produce a concentrate which will be very representative of what we will be producing once we've got the full-scale mining operation underway.
Yeah, I think so. You and some other companies have also started looking at their operations and trying to be more green, environmental friendly, because let's face it, mining has not had a good reputation, at least in the public perspective. Do you think that the efforts that are being done by the mining sector, by companies such as yourself, is being communicated enough to the public? Like, these are all the changes that's happening, so there are changes and it's for the good?
Yes. I think that most responsible mining companies are doing everything that they can do to limit their environmental impact and reduce their carbon footprint. Unfortunately, the nature of many mining operations and the extraction of minerals by its nature are unsustainable in many mining operations, where you're extracting large volumes of rock from the earth, and so there's no denying the fact that there is going to be an impact with mining, large-scale mining, but the responsible mining companies are doing what they can to produce it in an environmentally responsible way. The reality is that in order for the earth to move down the road of electrification, we are going to need minerals to achieve that. So mining has to be part of the solution. So I think that mining companies are doing what they can, and certainly a lot more now than they were perhaps 10 years, 20 years ago. In our case, we have the advantage in that we have a very energy efficient process. So we don't have to deal with a large carbon footprint just by the nature of the mineral composition that we have in a clay. So we have that advantage, and in addition to that, our process is a simple process that doesn't use reagents or chemicals that leave a legacy negative impact when we finish the mining operation. As I said to you earlier, these clays that we extract from the mining area are washed and they're returned as essentially a dry cake or a dry clay with a very limited moisture content in it, and our intention is to rehabilitate all of these areas that we're impacting with the revegetation by natural indigenous species that used to exist in that area. So our Penco module, which is what we call our first module, we have plans to put in several modules in Chile, but the first module, which is the Penco module, is located in an area that was previously owned by one of the large forestry companies in Chile. where they had grown eucalyptus and pine trees for many years. So the area has been intervened already by non-native species, the pine and eucalyptus. Where we are going to be operating, we will be replacing those with the indigenous species, and we have created a foundation where we will be establishing a park, forestry park in the area that we're currently mining, which we will hand over to this foundation for future management, which will leave a legacy for that area, which I think is very attractive to the people that live in the Concepcion and Penco areas.
That's amazing. That's an interesting, strategy or plan to, get the minerals and then just put it back where it's supposed to be.
That's right, and we do have the advantage that we're able to do that. So in our process, we don't alter the crystalline structure of the clays that we take out of the earth. So we have that advantage that we can put them directly back without there being any risk of leaching of any deleterious elements from the clays that we put back into the field. Not all mining operations have that advantage, but fortunately we do, and we think that's important for the future buyers of our product. I think it is important, and will become more important, that the products that mining companies produce have as light a carbon footprint as possible, and that's really where we see we have a competitive advantage over many other mining operations, even in the rare earth space.
Right. So what does 2023 look like? What other prospects are you pursuing in the near term?
Yeah, so we have an exciting couple of years ahead of us. So we've just started our feasibility study for the Penco module, and that will run through to the end of this year. We've just recently awarded a contract to a local Chilean engineering company that's located in the region where we operate. So once again, it's supporting the business in that area. So we will be continuing with the feasibility study through to the end of this year. And also importantly, we will be submitting our environmental permit application next month in April. And we believe that will be well received by the authorities. We've worked very closely with them historically, so they understand what our environmental permit looks like. And we expect to have that permit awarded by quarter two next year, 2024. Once that's approved, we'll move directly into the construction of the mine, and as I said, we hope to start producing the rare earths concentrate in early 2026. So it's a quite exciting year or two ahead of us, and that's really just relating to the Penco area. But of course, we are doing drilling in other areas. So we have a fairly extensive land package in Chile that is prospective, and we've been drilling over the last year in other areas. And in fact, as recently as February, we put a press release out of some drilling results of a sister site fairly close to the Penco site, about 40 kilometers south of our current site, which we think is very interesting. Also ionic clays, very similar to what we have at Penco, and we're going to be pursuing that as well. But we have other targets within Chile and within other regions in South America that we're going to be pursuing as well. So a couple of exciting years ahead of us.
Exciting indeed, and we look forward to hearing more about how your projects progress. And we would love to have you back here on the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And thanks for watching, everyone. This has been CEO Insights. Join us again next time for more engaging conversation.